Spoilers for The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. About 4 years ago, before the release of the highly anticipated Avengers Endgame, remember that era? Anyways, a man by the name of Nando V Movies, who you guys should check out, by the way, great content creator. Anyways, he brought together a group of creators to talk about their favorite Marvel scene ever, and it was called One Marvelous Scene. Soon after this, many creators joined in to share their favorite Marvel scene. Then came One Excellent Scene, where creators all shared their favorite scene from an X-Men movie. And I didn't participate in this one, unfortunately. But soon after, Nando collected his Avengers for another installment in what I like to call the One Scene series. This time, One Villainous Scene. Yeah, I didn't participate in this one either. But he brought creators together once again for one musical scene, where we would all share our favorite scene in a film that uses music, in which I chose to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy 1. That video will be linked in the description below. But about a week ago, Nando, the man, the myth, the legend, has brought for us another opportunity and another installment called One Last Scene, in which we talk about a last and impacting scene in a film. And for this installment, I wanted to appreciate one of my favorite scenes in one of the most underrated films by one of the most prominent directors working today. I like to call it the Jaguar Shark scene. The scene takes place in The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, directed by Wes Anderson. But before I show you the scene,
let me tell you about my boat.
Before I explain why this scene has so much impact, yes, this has all the bells and whistles that come with a Wes Anderson classic, except this film in particular has more of a rough edge compared to the rest of his filmography. It's a lot more handheld, not as polished, but I believe that's kind of the charm of this movie. Of course, it's going to have great set designs, an incredibly underappreciated score, a banging soundtrack, iconic costume choices, themes about broken family and past trauma, the quirky dialogue, and deadpan comedic delivery. It is all there. But without further ado, I'm going to talk about my one last scene. We're introduced to the main character of this story through an award ceremony where the audience is viewing a part of his documentary as an oceanographer. The character being played by Bill Murray in classic Wes Anderson fashion, of course, in this scene is seen to be exploring the deep sea and eventually losing a partner and friend of his crew named Esteban to what he likes to call a jaguar shark. But it's also important to state that pink fish were seen soon before Esteban's death and their encounter with this jaguar shark. And shortly after this introduction, the characteristics of him are made quite clear. He's selfish, egotistical, and really only cares about being the star as long as the cameras are constantly rolling. He could care less about people, things, and anything else that doesn't revolve around himself. We learn things like he split up with his wife, who also happened to then have an affair with his now enemy, Alistair Hennessy, played by Jeff Goldblum shortly after.
A night in Portugal, the Presidente gave a special ball.
Don't be nice to Allie. He's my nemesis.
He's soulless.
Your cat's dead.
What? Which one?
Marmalade. I'm sorry.
What happened?
A rattlesnake bit it in the throat.
God damn it, Eleanor. Why do you have to say it like that? You couldn't try to break it a little bit nicer?
People said a lot of things. What kind of cat was it?
Who gives a shit?
He's also rude.
I think you're a phony and a bad reporter. How's that feel?
an extreme narcissist and always wants to be the best when the cameras are rolling.
Cut. Klaus, why aren't you rolling?
Could I have a word with you, please?
Why aren't you getting this? That was a goddamn tearjerker. Why did you cut it, man?
This is who Steve Zissou is when we first meet him. Early on in the film, we also learn that Steve possibly has a son who goes by the name of Ned Plimpton. I say probably because Steve is introduced to him long after his birth, with Ned being in his 20s. Throughout the film, the two grow closer and closer, with Steve's ego constantly distracting him from the ability to bond with his possible son.
Would it be possible for me to address you as Dad in this scene? No, why?
It's also shown that Ned is a big fan of Zissou, having a junior member Zissou Society ring and multiple letters sent to him, which is revealed later throughout the film. Ned in this film is what feels like a happy backseat. He's along for the ride and hopes to get closer with who he thinks is his father, considering this was also shortly after his mother's passing that was very recent. Though he eventually becomes part of Team Zissou, there's one thing that separates him from the rest of the crew. He's not a yes man, but every now and then Ned lifts Steve up when he needs it the most.
I have $275,000 invested in this damn production. Something ate Esteban, didn't it? Now lead! Right? Right. Oh!
See the dwarfs and see the giants. Which one would?
See, throughout this film, Ned constantly checks Steve, calling out his imperfections, and this really helps Steve become a better person at the end of the day, and this is an extremely integral part of Steve's character arc throughout the entire movie.
Well, I'm also a human being.
All right, I take that back. Yeah. Let's have some teamsmanship.
Ho!
The relationship Steve has with his crew and the plethora of other characters in this film range from absolutely despised to,
oh my god, the meat writing is crazy.
Yeah, I'm talking about you, Klaus. And yes, your drip is absolutely insane. But to really sum it up, people either love or hate Steve. Some may be curious, but not really open-minded. Those two being Eleanor, his ex-wife, and Jane the reporter. Ned stands out from the rest as someone who's kind of on both sides. He's a fan, but he also sees Steve's flaws. He's willing to be open-minded to learn more, and not about fish, or boats, or Steve, but rather what could potentially be his father. The film makes it apparent that Steve isn't who he's made out to be. He's not some perfect movie star who also happens to be the best oceanographer in the world. He's far from it. He's constantly funding his research and explorations, this one being to find the Jaguar Shark that killed his friend Esteban, at the expense of other people's pockets without hesitation.
Remind me to send Eleanor's parents a thank you note on the good correspondence, Doc. Okay.
But I just inherited $275,000. Would that amount make any difference?
Continuously pushing people away, even Ned.
You call yourself my son, but I just don't see it.
Even going as far as taking credit for what seems to mostly be Eleanor's work in order to keep his status or fame.
People say Eleanor is the brains behind Team Zissou. What is Steve?
It's the Zissou.
This is why Eleanor sees him as nothing but a soulless and narcissistic person. It's why Jane sees him as a pretender, acting like someone that he's not. But on the other side, people like Klaus and Ned look up to him. The film gives us multiple examples exposing Steve to be far from how he sees himself. There's so many conflicting feelings from characters who interact with Steve throughout this film, and it's all integral to not only Steve's character, but the story that they're telling between him and the relationships he has with all these other characters. The film paints the picture of Steve pretty clear from the get-go, but over the course of the film, Steve goes through experiences, tragedies, and complex feelings that make him overall a better person. These things form him into someone that he isn't embarrassed to be. He goes through thick and thin for his crew, so much so where at one point he even saves his own enemy.
Vikram got some great footage of your boat out there. I guess it's total, huh?
Perhaps. We're extremely well insured. I'll probably come out ahead in the end. Although we'll obviously have to crew up from scratch next time.
And he does have feelings.
You are my son to me. Almost more so. See, for me to meet a guy like you at this time in my life, I don't know. It's just, I want to communicate my feelings to you, but I think I might start to cry.
Even offering a little spot on the Zissou flag for Ned.
Where's your symbol, Ned?
Well, I didn't want to impose myself.
Klaus is right. The flag needs a Ned symbol.
Well, I suppose we could put an N on the side of that octopus.
What's that stand for over there?
That's Esteban.
And sure, these things may seem little, and although he's not perfect, he's still better, especially from where he started. The loyalty he has for his crew, the love he has for Ned, the forgiveness he has for his wife, Jane the reporter, or even Alistair, all is real and authentic. As him and Ned are on their way to look for possible clues or indicators of the Jaguar Shark's existence, they see it. The light towards the end of the tunnel. The same pink fish that happened to appear right before Esteban's death. Nothing could affect Steve or his feelings any worse than he was before. While Steve has come to terms with his own imperfections and his compulsion to convince himself otherwise, no tragedy in this world, nothing could possibly affect.
This is gonna hurt.
Maybe I should have auto-rotated and performed a high bank through our descent. We might have crashed a little softer. That wouldn't have made any difference, though.
But till I can see that you'd really care for me, I will dream that someday you'll be really close to me.
Through unfortunate events, Ned passes away. Steve is torn, almost scared at the possibility that without Ned, he almost has no purpose. He feels his time has run out. This persona or star that he's presented himself as is done.
I guess we were all right while we lasted, though, weren't we?
Oh, we were like Glory's Gate, my darling. We were like that bloody shark of yours. We swam with the, God damn it. I had it on the plane. What was I going to say? Oh, well, it's good to see you.
Everything, including that ego, has been wrung out. The man who only cared about his status, star power, and awards no longer existed. And this is made even more clear with his interaction with Jane.
By the way, thanks for showing me the first draft.
You read it. What did you think?
Well, I was a little embarrassed at first. Obviously, people are going to think I'm a showboat and a little bit of a prick. But then I realized that's me. I said those things, I did those things. I can live with that. You're a good writer, Jay.
It took a lot for Steve to come this far as a person, and it also took a lot for me to write this far, so if you could like the video, I would greatly appreciate that. Point is, Steve has lost a lot, but he's also gained a lot as well. These series of unfortunate events have shaped him for the better. He doesn't have much to lose, but for what it's worth, at this point, finding the Jaguar Shark doesn't even matter.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've just got the scanning monitor back up, and it looks like the Jaguar Shark, or whatever it is that we're tracking, is in a trench on the far side of the reef.
Anybody feel like going for a ride?
Next theme, take 1.
As we all have witnessed Ned's death, getting kidnapped by pirates, and the plethora of other events during this exploration, we all get in the submarine with a sliver of hope that we might actually see something worthwhile. Hope that Steve was actually telling the truth and not lying for the camera for the infinite amount of time. Hope that Ned's death or anyone's sacrifices in safety weren't gonna go unrewarded. Entertained by the creatures and the fish of this deep sea, which were animated by the great Henry Selick, by the way, nothing quite catches the attention that we want. Nothing that's beautiful, that's as eye-catching as those pink fish did when we were... This scene brings a tear to my eye every time. As we sit in awe, it's hard to put the feeling into words. It is
beautiful, Steve.
Yeah, it's pretty good, isn't it? I wonder if it remembers me.
As Steve lets out all the emotions he's bottled up throughout the film, we're there to comfort him, seeing the person he's become instead of the person we thought.
Like this?
Just like that.
You do it too.
We complete the adventure, but another member of our crew has been lost. This one was my son.
As the entire voyage was being documented, we are then at the award ceremony once again, this time with the audience seeing the second part of this journey. Steve is no longer the selfish, soulless, and egotistical star he once thought of himself to be. He's now a man with different priorities and someone on a completely different side than where he started, now not even attending the ceremony. And with the award on one side of him and Klaus's nephew on the other, Steve hands the child the same ring that was once worn by Ned, putting him on his shoulders, and leaves the award behind. Thank you for watching. Please feel free to like the video if you did enjoy it, and consider subscribing if you haven't. It would mean the world. But yeah, you guys can watch more video essays below.